What's up, YouTube friends? Now, if you're like me, when I first started sewing and quilting, I was very intimidated by the whole process. The backing, the batting, and especially the binding. So I had a whole box of unfinished quilt tops that I never got around to. Now, when I was spring cleaning the sewing room, I decided to make a pact that I was going to finish those quilt tops, instead of just stacking more on top of more on top of more. My unfinished project box is pretty full. So today, I'm going to show you how to finish off these quilts the easy way, with no binding and using what you have. It's really easy and perfect for any of those beginning sewers, and the outcome is beautiful. I'll show you how to do it next. So the things you're going to need to finish your quilt top off easily are, of course, you're going to need your quilt top. Now this is called the Jelly Roll Race Quilt. I ended up using one jelly roll that I got on sale at Tuesday mornings. I think it was $20. And then I went ahead and added the black squares to each of the strips before I sewed them all together. I then just sashed it with some black, and then I put this blue batik for the border, and I think it turned out great. It's about 6 foot by 6 foot. I think it's a little bit shorter going this way. And this has to be one of my favorite quilt tops I've made recently. I just love the colors. This one's definitely going in my room and not on Mother's quilt rack. You're also going to need some sort of batting. Today I'll just be using some flannel. I have about 4.5 yards. I cut it in half and sewed it together. But you could use just about anything. You could of course use batting. I would go ahead and just use cotton though, and not polyester. The fluffiness of the polyester will probably get in your way when we're sewing this together. You could also use fleece or even an old blanket. Now finally, you're going to need a backing. Now one of my favorite subscribers messaged me on Facebook and asked if I would take some king-size sheets off his hands, and of course I said yes. Now he sent me 3 sets of king-size sheets, and they are not cheap. They have very high thread count. So I just want to give a big shout out to Mark for keeping me laughing in the comments, and also for the huge box of sheets. Now instead of doing any quilting, I'm going to tie this quilt together. So I'll also be using some black crochet thread, my sewing machine with matching thread, and ironing board. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your batting and lay it out on the floor. Now if you have to sew 2 pieces together like I did, I want my seam facing down. Now we want to make sure that this is nice and flat. So starting in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and smooth everything out to the edges. Next, I'm going to take my quilt top and I'm going to lay that out so that the right side is facing up. And just like the flannel, I'm going to start in the center and smooth everything out to the sides. Alright guys, so this is probably as smooth as I'm going to get it. So next I'm going to take some pins and I'm going to pin really well all around the edges, making sure I get both layers of fabric. And then I'll just throw a few in the middle just so nothing shifts. Alright, so I have my quilt top pinned to my flannel, and I stayed about 2 to 3 inches away from the edge here. That's going to make sure these pins aren't in our way when we go to sew this together. And then I went ahead and threw about 5 pins in the center just so nothing moves. So now you want to grab your fabric scissors. So now with my scissors, I'm just trimming my flannel to be the exact same size as my quilt top. So I trimmed all the way around my quilt top, so now we just want to set this off to the side for a minute and grab your backing piece. So like I said before, I'm going to be using a king size sheet. Now this is plenty of fabric to use for this quilt top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down so that the right side is facing up. Now this really doesn't have a right or wrong side, but if you have a print on your backing, you want that facing up. And just like before, you want to smooth it flat. And then, you guessed it, smooth it flat. Now just like before, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim my sheet to match the size of my quilt top. Alright, so I trimmed up my sheet, and now using my straight pins, I'm going to pin all the way around the sides, pinning all 3 layers together. But I'm going to leave about a 6 to 8 inch opening here at the top. After that, I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. Alright guys, so I'm over here at my sewing machine, and please excuse the noise. I have my washing machine going because I need clothes for next week. But today I'll be using a straight stitch. My length is a 2.5, and I'll be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I went ahead and just stuck a piece of tape here, a 1/2 inch away from my needle. I'm going to back stitch right here. This is where my first pin was. And then just keep sewing all the way around with that 1/2 inch seam allowance until I get to my final pin. If you do have any seams in your batting like I do right here, you want to make sure that your seams are laying flat. Alright guys, so I'm coming up to my corner. I'm going to stop a 1/2 inch away. I'm going to stop with my needle down, raise my presser foot, and spin. And just keep sewing. What's up, YouTube friends? Now this is Editing Matt from the future. I had a whole bunch of problems with my camera yesterday. For some reason, it just was not wanting to record. It'd go for 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and then just shut off. So there was a big chunk missing. So after I sewed around with that 1/2 inch seam allowance, forgetting not to backstitch at the beginning and the end, I then clipped the corners, making sure not to go through your thread. I then turned it right side out, and I pressed the seams all the way around, making sure they were nice and flat. Then I threw a couple pins in my opening, and the next scene you're going to see is me at the sewing machine. So now I'll return you back to your regular scheduled programming. So now I'm just going to top stitch the quilt with an 1/8 inch seam allowance. So don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And just keep sewing. So I'm coming up here to my corner. I'm going to stop an 1/8 inch away with my needle down, raise my presser foot, and spin. And continue to sew. Alright guys, so I'm coming up here to my end, so don't forget to backstitch. Alright, so here's what the top stitching looks like from the back. And now to finish this off, I'm going to tie it together. Now I'll be using this black crochet thread, and I'm actually going to put a tie in each one of these squares. And the ties are just going to help it from coming apart in the wash machine. So I have a ribbon needle here. It has a larger eye on it, and my crochet thread. I'm going to come down, make sure you go through all 3 layers. I'm going to put my needle up about a 1/4 inch away from where I went in. Next, I'm just going to take my string and I'm going to wrap it around 2 times and pull. This first one, you don't want to pull it really tight because you don't want to pucker. Then I'm going to wrap it around 2 more times and pull it tight. And then I'm just going to trim it and I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch thread tail. Just like that. I'll show you one more time. So I'm going to stick my needle in. Make sure I go through all the layers. I'm going to come up about a 1/4 inch away and tie my knot. And trim. So I'm just going to do that to the rest of these squares and I'll show you the finished results. And just that easy, your quilt is done. Now here's what the back looks like. Now here's a couple more quilts that I finished the exact same way. Now I've been sewing for about 6 years and this is probably the 3rd quilt top that I finished. So it's been in my unfinished box for quite some time. And I just backed this one with the red sheet set. And I also used the red sheets on this one. Well, I hope you give this video a try on how to finish your quilt with no binding. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Head on over to Patreon if you'd like to support this channel for as little as $1 a month, would keep these videos coming. Friend me on Twitter and Facebook as Scrappy's Patch if you'd like to share crafting ideas and pictures. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching. Have fun finishing those unfinished projects, and I'll see you next time.